Hello, everybody.
Indeed. Hello and welcome, everybody. Over there in Florida, laughing at me is my friend Rish.
And over there laughing at himself is my friend Roland.
Yeah, well, if you can't laugh at yourself, what do you have to laugh about, Rish?
I'm gonna go with politicians and how incredibly stupid they are.
Well, that is the cue for me to put out the first thing we are going to talk about today. The Independent, British newspaper, just published an article this morning. UK to set to make the Wagner Group a terrorist organization. So when you designate any organization as a terrorist organization, that has some legal consequences. So, for example, if you are an employee of that organization, not necessarily a combat troop, but just work in administration, for example, you are now a terrorist.
Mhm.
So the other thing is it is now much easier to, let's just say, there is an account of the Wagner Group in the UK and you want to appropriate that money for yourself. So if that is a terrorist organization, you just walk in the bank and say, this money is mine. Not exactly in those terms, but it is much easier than to say, well, I want to take Rish's money away from him. I want to take Roland's money away from him.
Mhm.
So there is certain legal consequences when you are designated as a terror group, terrorist group, or whatever kind of designation is. So yeah, in the UK there is currently a couple of these terrorist groups. One of them, obviously, is the Islamic State. Da, 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 da. Let me have a look. There is
Al Qaeda,
Al Qaeda. Definitely is
Al
one.
Shabaab.
Can't speak for that.
It's
Uh,
the African affiliate of Al Qaeda.
nope.
They've
Well,
cut ties.
well, they got only a few groups listed in that article. The third one, after Islamic State and Al Qaeda, is a neo-Nazi group called the National Action. So,
Haven't heard of them.
exactly what I was gonna say. Who the f is that? So and
I think that was just a dose of fuck Whitey.
so for me it is kind of a thing.
Uh,
Look, especially with so-called Nazis
Being
and
inclusive.
right-wingers.
We have to be inclusive. If we're going to
No,
talk
no.
about terrorists, we have to talk about one from every color and religion.
Look,
Uh,
for me, this is the thing, and I had this conversation with a police officer over 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years. There was, well, we Germans, we have a tradition with Nazis. Yeah, this is the Adolf movement was not the only one, but as of now, there's only two parties. In Germany that are blacklisted. You can't have the German Communist Party and the SRS, which was a Nazi party. So
Seems reasonable.
essentially, absolutely look, it is quite a procedure because we don't want to just ban any kind of party, because that is what Adolf did right
Mhm.
after every party thought, well, we dissolve ourselves, refound ourselves, and Adolf has to hold elections. No, he didn't. He just said, well, any new party is illegal. Boom, there you are. So that is why we want to be a bit careful with just any kind of political party, put them on the blacklist. So, but the kind of thinking I had is, there was in a city near us, there was a planned neo-Nazi march. So these Nazis are walking through the streets, a public demonstration, holding their flags and shouting slogans. So basically your typical demonstration. And I said, well, there wouldn't
Asshole.
be, yeah, look, my point is, there wouldn't be
Asshole.
much of a demonstration if you just let them demonstrate and the rest of the public would just, yeah, do their thing. I'm not, I'm definitely sure you and all of our viewers will have quite a few ideas what they could do if that was in their city. And the police
We
officer
don't
said, look,
have to wonder in America. We have Nazi rallies.
so no, what I'm trying to say is why.
They're really stupid here too, and
Look, no,
God,
what I'm
fucking
saying is
idiots.
you have every demonstration is accompanied by the police. Depending on the threat level, that's the number of police you're getting. And Nazi rallies are threat level 1. They have threat level alpha. You have the whole fucking department, and you bring ready police force in from other cities to make sure nobody attacks the Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
N-words in general seem to invoke a lot of hate and a lot of crazies.
Yeah. Look, and I said, well, why do we protect these people? Just withdraw the police and let the rest of society deal with the Nazis. And another point I was raising with that police officer is I said, well, how many? Well, he agreed with me. We are taking those Nazis way too serious. And he shared with me at that moment in time, we had about 2,500, 5,000 real Nazis in Germany, a country of 80 fucking million people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, look, exactly as you said, there is enough people that fell on their head when they were a baby and do stupid stuff. So some are Nazis, some are communists, some are God knows what. I don't care. But the moment you start taking these people serious is where you are elevating them and giving them a platform that they don't deserve. Boom.
Yeah, well, in America we have something even worse because we have certain freedoms, which the freedoms aren't worse. Obviously, the freedoms are world class. Is what we're known for. But because of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, I haven't seen it since the Baltimore riots when the cops and the urban community really, were really taking a nosedive as far as willingness to cooperate. But the thing before that happened was when the Klan would hold rallies, they would only supply African American black cops. So the black cops would surround the protest, the march, with clubs and shields to protect the KKK. Because if they got white cops, obviously, well, the crowd would try to kill them. The cops, that is. They would throw stuff at them, and the cops kept getting labeled. So I always thought that, man, that is really screwed up.
Look, I have the same opinion. And like I said, the police officer said,
That's bad.
if anything happens to one of these Nazis, they're gonna put this through the news for the next year or two. And really, that's the kind of thing. I do understand where it's coming from. I do understand where this idea comes from. You shouldn't be able to say X, Y, Z on social media or wherever. But I'm also kind of thinking, especially social media. Let's just say you get all those at that time, say 5,000 Nazis together in a city. A city in Germany has 40,000, 100,000 people. That's a higher number. So please.
Did you not see Richmond, Virginia a few years back?
No.
That's what 5,000 Nazis looks like. They had tiki torches. They went to the college campus or that little historic square in Richmond, Virginia. They were screaming blood and soil. We already had 5,000. And then Antifa showed up, and they're fascists who claim to be anti-fascist. And then the Nazis and the fascists started killing each other, and a bunch of people died, and a bunch of people on both sides got arrested for inciting riots. So I already know what this looks like because it wasn't this decade. It was before. It was in the 20 teens. But I literally watched it live on TV, like going, oh man. And I remember the first thing I saw, because you could see the protesters and the Nazis and the anti-protesters, and then other people who showed up just looking for some fun or some action. They didn't
Yeah.
care who got hurt. They just were like, hey, if it goes sideways, maybe I'll get to unleash the beast, basically, and purge. So you had people basically coming there to make sure that people got hurt. And I watched all that live on TV. And yeah, a bunch of people died. And
Yep.
sadly, I was right, because as soon as I saw the marching with the torches and I saw everything, and I went, people are going to die. And then the next day, they started releasing numbers on how many people died.
Look, there was, I don't know where it was, but essentially, ultra left wing, ultra right wing meet each other in a square.
But here's the thing: they're both assholes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know when it was. It's about 10, 15 years ago when I saw this together with a friend news item, as in ultra left wing, ultra right wing meet in the square, beat the crap out of each other, 5 people die. So and I was watching this with a friend, and we were talking about, well, if that happens in Germany, he said, well, that's 5-0 for Germany, 5 motherfuckers dead. So 5 assholes, doesn't matter which side, gone from the equation. And again, this is the kind of thinking when you look at this. Why is a totally unknown violent grouping on the terrorist list, not on the watch list, but on this is a terrorist organization kind of thing?
Well, because they did something that made the news somewhere, or they had political connections that were either they had too many political friends or they had too many political enemies, and having too much of either will get you on some watch lists. But this is
one thing, yes.
But this all comes back to the topic of the conversation was, is Wagner terrorist? And I staunchly say no. I say that the UK, if they do go through with putting them on the terrorist list, I think it's uncalculated. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's incredibly stupid, to be frank. And here's why. The Wagner Group is mercenaries. Everybody else uses mercenaries. The US, the UK uses mercenaries. They are mercenaries. They are conforming to the moral standard of the nation or king or entity that has the gold. Whoever has the gold, what do we say? Follow the money. Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
Yep.
The guy with the money says this is in bounds, then it's in bounds. That's a mercenary. The guy says don't do this, this, or this, or no pay, and they don't do that. That's a mercenary. Mercenaries, that's how they act. Extreme groups, they're in it for the ideology. So they could get paid or not get paid. It doesn't matter. That's a huge difference. And what if the UK goes through with this, what they're doing, they're sending a terrible precedent, because the US and the UK use a lot, especially the US, use a lot of mercenary forces. Ours are called private military contractors, and everybody else kind of understood that if you didn't want to review the Geneva Convention, then you had to call mercenaries private military contractors.
That's exactly what I'm looking. That's what I'm looking at right now.
So when we need some mercenaries to go do some stuff, they're not going to do it for any amount of gold, because they're not Blackwater. I mean, they had to change their name after they were expelled from Iraq. They changed their name and they never left Iraq. So if we start doing that, we will lose our capability to use these mercenaries in places where, when you die, we need you to be trained by us or some Western nation. We need you special forces, at least tier 2 caliber. And when you die, we need you to be a man of no nation. If we start labeling these groups terrorists, we lose our ability. And the West has this affinity with making rules and being the only ones who follow them. So when we make rules about nuclear weapons, when we make rules about tonnage on battleships back in the day, people will always break those rules. So the only people that we're handicapping is ourselves. So I don't see how this isn't just us tying a hand behind our back.
not tying our hands behind our back. I mean, going from what you said, let's just say we, or let's say the US has a certain interest in certain things in Ukraine going in a certain way. Yeah.
Well, of
So
course we do, or else we wouldn't be supplying them. We always have an agenda.
let's just say we are financing directly or indirectly a mercenary group, not other than Wagner.
Yep.
Send them in Ukraine, send them into Ukraine. And what you said happened reciprocally. Putin declares XYZ group that we have sent a terrorist group, and he catches one of them, an American. So it will be all over the news. American terrorist, blah blah blah. Yeah,
American terrorist supports Ukraine blank.
Yeah.
And he'll So it's incredibly short-sighted. I had the same thing, and we talked about this earlier. I had the same issue when Trump gave Benjamin Netanyahu a political gift right before their elections in Israel, where he recognized the Golan Heights, and I thought that was very short-sighted and was not thought through properly, because, and this is why I say I know Russia will do this, because as soon as the U.S. recognized Golan Heights as Israel's territory, which they took by force. Yes, there's a whole war. That's a series of episodes about how that came about. But as soon as they did that, Russia immediately ran to the UN, to BRICS, to anybody that would listen, and said, how is Golan Heights and Crimea different?
Yeah.
And if you do it with the PMCs, they're either mercenaries, which is what they are. They are men who fight for gold.
Yeah.
And women now. Fuck it, be inclusive.
Look.
Okay, it's men. It's men who fight for gold. They're not terrorists. Terrorists fight for ideals or just for the plain sick pleasure of watching the world burn. Mercenaries, you stop paying them, they leave.
Right. To pick up on the point, what you said, we are only encountering ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It is this Western kind of thinking. If we make a rule, everybody else will follow, because it's the smart thing to do. Let's say it is even a smart thing to do. But, well, we have one global player that just doesn't give a shit about the rules unless it suits them. Yeah? We talk about this country or that government every single day. And this just shows when you are dealing with a force. I want to use the word force, not country, because it also applies to people. That simply says, well, you can make whatever rules you want. If I want to, I follow them. If I don't want to, I don't follow them.
Well, that falls under might makes right.
Yeah. But if you let that get away, and this is discussion I had earlier this morning, at this stage of how the world is working, I do not see how we can avoid a complete decoupling West, Russia, China. I don't see it. The only thing we are doing right now, whether it is energy, so Putin is trying to fuck us with the gas for next winter already. So I'm saying, well, he's going to do that. And let's just say we say, okay, Vladimir, take Ukraine, whatever. Yeah. And he is nice enough to lower the gas price. He will do the same thing again because now he has learned, well, I can use that. So my kind of thinking is, well, we can have, say, 2 or 3 years really, really harsh decoupling from Russia now, or we can have those 2 or 3 years in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10 years down the line. Same thing with China and the supply chain. We can,
or we could have fought the Soviets when we had all our gear. The lines were already drawn, and now look, fucking 80 years later, and it's still an issue.
Look at it from this point of view. We never had, but with the Russians or the Soviets in 1940s, 1950s, I wouldn't want to know how this was going to go. But 60s, 70s onward,
there would have been Russian tanks in Paris. There would have been Russian tanks in Paris, and we would have had to beat them all the way back. But before we get off of the other point, another thing with the might makes right. There's a reason also why trial by combat is no longer seen, because when you do things trial by combat, you can do that as a nation to where the war decides who is right, because to the victors go the pen.
Yep.
The spoils of war now is getting to write the history books, but there's a reason why they did away with trial by combat. I can be the best duelist for, as far as 1,000 eyes can see in any direction. I can literally just go around killing people and say trial by combat. I win the trial by combat, God wills it. I walk out, I go kill somebody else. Trial by combat doesn't work. All it does is trial by combat enforces the might makes right. If I can force and will it and militarily achieve it, then I
Yep.
was right. And that is a very dangerous thing with
Yep.
how well our species has become at exterminating our own species. This isn't swords and bows and arrows, boys. We're playing for keeps.
Look, and that is something I keep saying about when I talk about creativity and innovation. Humankind has never been more inventive and creative in other things than finding new, more efficient and effective ways to kill one another.
Yeah, but we ain't
War
doing it with a
has
rock, Abel.
always look. War has always been a great motor for innovation, as deranged as this sounds. But look at it from this point of view. World War One, or let's say the first
World War One got us
technological war.
penicillin, didn't it?
Yep. No, World War Two. World War Two. What I was going to say, the first war fought with technology was the American Civil War. You have machine
you had rifled
guns,
muskets, and you had the Devil's Breath, which was the hand-cranked Gatling gun.
Yep, exactly. You had machine
but they
guns.
fought, but we fought that war. We fought that war in the European style where we lined up, but our weapons technology had advanced to where the massive smooth bore volleys weren't as devastating as the massive rifled barrels.
Yep.
And then we decided, why are we shooting peasants? Let's shoot lords. Let's shoot officers. Yeah. Every American with a gun in the Revolutionary War knew how to read British insignias. And when it came down to the Gatling gun, they knew where to aim it. Aim it at concentrations, aim it at artillery.
That's exactly the thing. So the next technological war on a large scale was World War One, where we used poison gas, tanks, and planes. Yeah. So when you look at planes and World War One, we started with planes that were really, really slow and were only good for observation, to fighter planes that were doing. I wouldn't be able to say how fast, but
the first World War planes were just a blimp or a hot air balloon that could move without being cranked up, and pray to God they can crank you down fast, because they didn't shoot you on the way up in the balloon. They shoot you on the way down.
So when you look at the early World War II, I think fighter planes were doing like 300 kilometers per hour, and at the end of that war, they were doing 1,000. Yeah, or bomber planes, 150, 200 kilometers per hour to 350, 450 kilometers per hour. I mean combat speed, not this is the maximum I can do. So you had jet bomb. Well, one of the things that people don't know is that, first of all, the B-52 is a bomber conceived in early World War One. So Americans saw, well, the first people that really saw Hitler as for who he was were the Americans. So one of the evaluations from Mein Kampf, Hitler's propaganda book, was, well, Hitler wants to be world dominator. Yeah. So they realized that, and they realized during the French campaign, well, this could go south really badly. They could potentially involve neutralize Great Britain as a staging area for the British Empire and us. So at this stage, Roosevelt knew, well, the Americans will have to go in, but I can't tell them that right now, or I won't get elected. So there was in 1940, 1941, basically what happened.
In World War One, it was one ship. In World War Two, it was a bunch of ships. That's how we got into the wars.
So what we looked at is why did Hitler declare war on the United States?
One of the dumbest things he could have done.
Well, yes and no. Because at that moment, the US and the Germans had been fighting in the Atlantic for almost a year already. So when you look at the neutrality patrols, the legislation that enabled the neutrality patrols, we're basically saying we are Americans, we will shoot at anyone we like, and we very much like to shoot at the Nazis and not at the British. So that's what it was. So there were several incidents where German submarines were harassed, whether they were showing to be unfriendly or not.
Yeah, but if Germany wouldn't have declared war officially on the United States in solidarity with the Empire of Japan, the European theater would not have been our primary focus. It would have been the Pacific.
And this is why I am conflicted about this. First of all, it was just we were already at war with the Americans, or the Germans were at war with the Americans, and vice versa. The other thing why I think it was stupid is the Japanese never declared war on the Soviet Union, and Hitler was, what the fuck, yeah. So there was plenty of supplies going from the States to the Soviet Union via the Arctic route. Not the Arctic route, the Siberian route. So basically going into Vladivostok, and the Japanese didn't give a bloody damn about it. And Hitler was furious about that.
Yeah, no, we had to give those bastards three of our best. We had the North Star, the South Star, the East Star, and the West Star, and we gave the Russians three of our best brand new icebreakers so they could keep their stupid shipping lanes open.
Well, we had to give them a truckload of ships, so we gave them even up to battleships. We gave them
but the icebreakers were the first thing we sent.
Yep.
Here's icebreakers. If you want more,
them light cruisers and other stuff. So, I mean, going forward from there, yes, it's possibly a double-edged sword. I mean, I know where it's coming from. It's to declare Wagner a terrorist group is a political signal. So it is just one step short from saying, well, Putin is a terrorist.
They're a necessary evil that we employ to our own goals as well. And Russia won't stop. Nations will not stop using PMCs, mercenaries. But if you start labeling them terrorists,
I absolutely follow your point. And my thinking is now, well, we want to label them as terrorists without labeling them as terrorist organization. So
here's a better idea. Let's just kill them.
So, well,
when you fight for gold, they have to give you enough gold to make it worth the consequences and repercussions of going to war for gold. You have to tip it to where they cannot, the man with the gold in the purse cannot afford to pay what's demanded for the risk level.
Here's an idea.
Let's start offing these motherfuckers in droves.
There's another idea. I mean, it sounds rather weak, but it does have teeth actually. When you look at well, this is a specific case for the United Kingdom, for the UK, because this is British law. So let's just say you make it illegal if it's not already illegal. I don't know British law that well. For example, in Germany, it is illegal to join the armed forces of anybody else than your own country. So they did this because they didn't want people to join the Foreign Legion. Well, now there's other private military contractors to which this could be applied as well. So make that illegal. You are caught doing that. You are caught advertising for it. Yeah, make that illegal. Arrest these people.
Wait.
There's
Okay,
also
okay.
the chance.
Wait.
Let me finish that line of thought. There's also the chance if you say,
there's a
but
problem.
if you're doing that, you can be deprived of your citizenship. There is laws that do that.
Now let me
Okay,
ask you a
carry
question.
on.
So what happens when the U.S. moves 1,000 PMC troops, private military contractors? What happens when the U.S. helps move with the logistics, moves 1,000 of these operators through Ramstein Air Base? What's Germany do then?
Look the other way.
So you're making a law that will prove your hypocrisy.
Wait a second. Who are these people? Who are these?
They're going to be Americans and Brits, paid by Americans and Brits.
And what laws of Germany apply to these people?
Well, you said, okay, but see, here's where there's a lot of gray area. Obviously, there is with something like this, but there is troops. There's operators who are violating a German law in Germany, who are brought there by a third-party nation into their country.
Germany. They are not in Germany.
Oh yeah, because they're not going to hit a broom or a mop stick or a freaking beer garden on the way out.
Look,
they're going to war,
and they will not be let off that airbase. Plain and simple. First reason.
Back to devil's advocate. What happens when they do? Because it will happen. Does Germany arrest them? Do you put them on trial? Is it public?
Do we officially know that? Well, first of all, it is in that specific case, it would be in the interest of the airbase and the Americans as a country to not let anybody know we are flying in, say, 1,000 people, and fly them out again to Ukraine. So the other thing is,
one of these morons is sneaking off base before he goes to get shot at to look for some drink, some drugs, or some strange.
Well, let's
it will happen.
If they are dumb enough to publicly announce I'm going to fight in Ukraine, and let's say that would be illegal. Yeah, it's not illegal to go into Ukraine to fight, unless you are a German, and you say that to the German authorities. So, well, let's just say there was a kind of check outside of that military installation, because it is, I know this for a fact, the German authorities have no jurisdiction over anything beyond that fence.
Well, yeah, and you also have to speak English if you want to land a plane in Germany.
Well, yeah, we lost the war. Yeah, I know that joke, but no. What happens is first of all, for that one in 10 billion cases where one of these idiots,
one of these idiots is gonna do it.
I strongly doubt it. But for the fun of it, let's say it's happening, and let's say he is also very talkative while he's drunk. Yeah?
Right.
So if the police is dumb enough to check on that person, well, I don't have identification with me. Okay. What you gonna do about it? You can arrest him until that person's identified. But that's fuck all.
All right. Yeah? Now, let me continue to play devil's advocate. Okay, so now mercenaries are now on the terrorist groups. The meteoric rise of the private military industrial complex is being taken down. They're labeled terrorists. The people are disbanding, blah, 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 blah. The next step is, what's the difference between mercenaries and a foreign legion? The Ukrainian foreign legion, the French foreign legion. So when people try to leave America and join ISIS, if we found out our citizens were doing that, we would arrest them. because they had become terrorists. So if you blur the line of terrorist, if you muddle it so much that now mercenaries are now terrorists, when do the foreign legions become terrorists? And now you have American arms and munitions and money being sent to Ukraine, but now you have to arrest American citizens who are going to Ukraine to fight in their foreign legion as terrorists, and you got to put them in the same shithole cell next to the guy who tried to join ISIS. They're not the same ideology. They didn't go for the same reasons. One went, I mean, I guess technically they both went to help the fight for the cause they believed in. But I'm just saying, you start graying that fucking line.
I totally see where you're coming from. And
And it's not a huge jump to get from, okay, I say there's a huge jump from terrorist to mercenary. But I say the line between mercenary and everything else, PMC, Foreign Legion, any kind of security forces, that line, if you cross that first one, it'll get easier as it goes down the line. I don't see any way around it.
No, like I said, there is definitely a point, and that is why this should be very, very considerate.
Stop! Just knock it off.
Moving to
Britain.
another topic, but the same country, Russia. People have a lot to say about the victory parade.
You mean the toned back victory parade that they threw while getting their ass whooped?
Well, one of the comments is like, well, they didn't really have that many tanks and vehicles and stuff because they're all in Ukraine. Yeah. So
yeah. In some farmer's barn.
Something like that. But I was more interested, or I found more interested, the comments from ordinary Russians on the street. And the thing is, the comments in general are about how Russia has been attacked by the West, and it's absolutely justified that they are fighting back. And I have to say, this reminds me very much of Chinese propaganda and the Nazi propaganda during or in the run-up to World War II.
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't notice the Japanese emperor when he was surrendering on that battleship going, "What's up with the nukes, bro?" Nah, you knew why.
Look, I say the Japanese, even more than the Germans, had stupid bombed out of them. And I invite everybody to look at pictures of Germany 1945, Japan 1945. Don't look at the pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Look at ordinary cities that have been high explosive and that basically carpet bombed. Yeah, carpet and firebombed. There is
one than the other.
There is literally, when you look at Berlin, Cologne, there is literally nothing standing but empty hulks of buildings.
And maybe a chimney here and there.
That's what I'm saying.
The rest of the house is gone. There might be a chimney.
There might be a chimney. There might be a couple of outer walls, but there are no roofs. There are no inner walls.
There might be
no floors.
half an abbey, a quarter of a church.
And let's just say the Allies had so many planes and so many bombs. They just, when they, for certain cities, especially the larger ones, they just said, okay, we are now at the outskirts. We just open our bomb chutes, and start area bombing everything. We don't care what we hit.
When we started bombing mainland Japan, towards the end, we didn't even send them with fighter escorts. They were going unopposed to rain death.
And to look at it even
like
further.
Old Testament biblical raining fire and brimstone, literally from the sky.
This kind of warfare has, evolved to the point during the Vietnam War or in the run-up to the Vietnam War. The Americans The Americans looked at it and said, well, this is how we can bomb this country. Then they started listing targets. And they had to go down to saying, well, what are the 2 stories buildings in this country?
See, you skipped a war that even more highlights your point. Towards the end of Korea, the target for U.S. strikes, the criteria was basically is one brick on top of another brick.
Yeah.
Bomb it till it's one brick high. Not one story,
Yep.
one brick. If 2 bricks are high, that's a structure. Bomb it. And that's how we left Korea.
Look, there is in Korea 3 years of fighting, more ammunition was used than in the whole of World War II.
Well, when the Chinese showed up, there was a lot more targets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyone looking at these kind of things and saying it doesn't affect me, or I mean, how
in Vietnam we bombed another country with iodine, or not with iodine, with silver particulates to make it rain. Like, we'll bomb you with whatever.
So I mean, looking at this and going back to that victory parade, is when you are at the level where people have stopped thinking. Essentially, I mean, this is completely illogical from any point of view, and even this, or the Ukrainians are Nazis, and so a Jewish president in a Nazi country. And the first real mercenaries that joined up were actually Muslim soldiers.
Yeah.
So
well, it was the Chechens. It was the Chechens that weren't fighting for the Russians.
So
it was the Chechens who want freedom for Chechnya.
So you have all these religions that hate each other in the same fucking trench, shooting at the same fucking enemy.
We hate you more.
Yeah, exactly. We hate you more.
How bad did you fuck up when the Jews and the Nazis have put aside their differences?
Together with Muslims. So don't forget them. So, and this is the kind of delusion when you look at, but to move to a more positive side of that. The people that were interviewed, the older they get, the more they are up to, well, let's join the fight. Well, when do you go? Oh no, someone else should go. Yeah.
No, but see,
the younger they are, they say this war is bullshit. I'm not even allowed to call it a war because then I get arrested.
But see, Putin did something smart. I mean, Putin's not a dumb guy, but I think that Putin took a page out of Trump's playbook, where with Trump, he was attacked by his political rivals from his candidacy through his presidency and even up until now. He was legitimately attacked 100% of the time. As soon as one thing was found out to be false, they do another. And I think Putin looked at how Trump's base responded to that, because Trump was always under attack. So Trump's base said, now so many things have been proven false. No matter what, we're going to support him because we can't trust the people who are attacking him. Putin, who was the one doing all the attacks, changed it up, played victim, had the PR machine make it look like he's being attacked. The latest thing, drone strikes at the Kremlin to try to assassinate him. I'm telling you, he took a page from Trump, but he had to twist it because Trump was being attacked. Putin was doing the attacking, but he saw, if you're the one seen as an attack, you can draw people on the fence to your side and rally behind you because they feel like one of their own is under attack from everything and they need your unflinching support. And so look, that's how he's controlling his base.
What I'm saying, immediately when I saw this attack on the Kremlin, it's the Ukrainians. No, not because the Ukrainians said they didn't do it, but because it is.
We went over this. Who makes the most sense? Who gains the most from that attack? Not Ukraine.
I can tell you the security of the Kremlin. So
he bought it. We talked about it. He bought in troops loyal to him with the best equipment who are fed
no.
and surrounded himself with that. Called
Even
it air defense.
Rish, even in peacetime, you can't smuggle a fucking Playboy or penthouse into Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go
But
into
you
the
can get
Kremlin.
Pepsi.
You can't just go into the Kremlin. You can't do anything to the Kremlin. You can't attack the Kremlin, because in the Kremlin is the so-called Taman Guard. That is how do I say that? It's object
Fanatics?
protection. Well, they are ethnics, yeah. So the other outside is I don't know if it's MDV or KG. Well, there is KGB. There is in
FSB.
Well, in Russia possibly FSB, but there is also KGB troops, yeah, in civilian clothes doing area, yeah. But there is three
Gestapo.
different kinds of combat troops protecting the Kremlin during peacetime. None of them is regular army. So then you have, of course, KGB, FSB doing intelligence.
I'm sure all
protection.
like idealists and zealots and the kind of unflinching loyalty you would want.
So now basically what he's bringing in with troops is basically mechanized infantry. They have the good stuff. So if anything, well, another thing that is typically Russian or Soviet is the kind of thinking, these three groups that protect the Kremlin, those non-combat troops, not regular army, they hate each other. So that makes sure none of these groups is trying anything. Now you bring in regular army, mechanized infantry with armor, with APCs and infantry fighting vehicles. So you have first of all the who is commanding the strategic rocket forces, the nukes, and a large part of the air defense in Russia?
I thought the nukes were essentially handled by unit commanders. They had the final little.
Well, they have.
I am not an expert on the nuclear triad of Russia. Well, I'll admit it.
I should be more specific. Those people control
some guy
the rockets
who likes
and
Putin.
the launchers, but the warheads in any given case, until they are used, are under direct control of the KGB.
Yep. So that doesn't seem like a good idea. That seems like a terrible idea, actually.
But there's also KGB has a lot of control over air defense in terms of missile sites.
But why does your intelligence agency control your nukes?
Because that is what the big kahuna Stalin said.
I mean, I'm not saying the CIA and MI6 probably don't have a tactical nuke or 12 or something, but the big ones? The big ones? No, that needs to be the military.
Look, there was, or up until today, there is a political commissar in every unit.
Oh, wait. Does that mean the hunt for Red October got that right?
Yep.
There's a like on all the ballistic missile subs, there's a political officer where he can be like, this is my boat.
Well, technically, on paper, the commander and the highest political officer of the unit are equal in rank, and have
so
equal
the XO and the political officer. Okay.
But no, not the XO. The XO is the first officer, so that's the same thing as with us. But let's say there is a theater commander is a general. The political officer is also a general. So so he's
equal with the captain.
doesn't matter which rank they have. They are both equal and have equal command over the unit. In theory. In practice, it's what the political officer says, because if the political officer doesn't get what he or she wants, he will just say, well, are you a Nazi? Are you not a good communist? I'm gonna arrest you.
You're CIA.
Yeah.
So
And it did happen.
a nice little
It did
9x18 Makarov to the back of the skull.
Something like that. So
So it's a
yeah.
fantastic cartridge. It's very effective for executions.
Well, I mean, moving forward from that, I mean, it was a poor excuse for a victory parade, and he doesn't have a victory to report. He can only say about how he and Russia is under attack. So now let's again, this is the same. It is the same narrative as the Chinese Communist Party is handing out, but you have young Russians or young Chinese that had a look into your and my living room. They know we have refrigerators, Pepsi, and in general,
No,
it
Pepsi,
doesn't really affect us.
Pepsi is a Russian joke because Russia wouldn't have Coca-Cola. And I don't know if you know this, but at one point in time, Pepsi Cola had, I think, the fourth largest navy on Earth because and the U.S. government actually signed off on this. So, fun factoid: this is why whenever Russia comes up, I have a little Pepsi snippet. The U.S. wanted Russia to obviously have less ships, and Pepsi is extremely popular in Russia, but they couldn't, because of the Cold War, they couldn't do business outright. So the Soviets basically said, we have a bunch of ships that we're going to decommission. We'll give them to you for the scrap price. Some of them will actually need to be towed to whatever you're going to scrap them. Well, they sent so much Pepsi over there and got so many ships. Pepsi had like the fourth or fifth largest standing navy on the planet, and the U.S. was okay with it because it was ships that they got the iron, they got the steel, they got the ships. So some of them were seaworthy. I mean, obviously it was like the worst 50 ships they had, but still 50 less ships. So whenever you say something about Russia and I go, but they got Pepsi, Pepsi Cola will find a way to supply Russia with Pepsi.
Yeah. Different news item from the Telegraph. Virus scientists banned from China over COVID leak fear. And it's my friend Peter Daszak, who helped the Chinese Communist Party. Leaking? Yeah, no. Peter Daszak is the guy basically going in front of the camera and pushing the Chinese narrative of this is not from Wuhan. It is racist to call it Wuhan virus, blah blah blah.
What is Peter?
Peter Daszak is the guy that did that.
No, I mean, he doesn't sound Chinese, but
no,
you can
British.
name someone whatever you want. Okay, so he's a Brit.
Yeah. So moving forward from that, people found out, well, Peter Daszak actually knows that they are doing this kind of stuff because he is the guy doing it via the Wuhan lab. And via his what's his
is he in
charity
custody?
Or whatever called? No, he is a free man and continues to do this kind of gain of function and whatever research, but he is not going to China right now because it's politically sensitive. Yeah. So
I thought he'd be going to that embassy where the WikiLeaks guy hid out.
Look, I will say this about this kind. First of all, we are not really gaining very much knowledge via this kind of thing. What they are doing, and it's not vaccines coming out of it, not kind of knowledge how we protect ourselves against bio attacks. Nothing of that is coming from there. Scientists have gone on the record in Senate hearings, literally in public hearings, and being on the record under the threat of punishment, If they lie and say no, we are not learning anything. Yeah, all we learn is how to weaponize viruses, make them more dangerous. So the thing is, if you are asking me right now, or if you're asking anyone right now, will we ever find out the truth? Where does this virus come from? What does it do? Blah blah blah. No, we won't. Everything has been, and this is another thing. Just talking about it makes me laugh. Is that market and that lab have been scrubbed clean so many times by so many different disinfecting agents,
Oh,
by so
there's a
many different
graveyard somewhere
processes.
too. Don't forget, there's a graveyard over this shit. I
No.
guarantee it. Yes, people. No, some people got unalived real quick.
Yeah, but in China you get burned.
Well, you know what I meant. I meant
I
some
know what you
humans
mean.
got unalived.
Yep, but
Yeah.
look, we will never find out the truth. First of all, we would have needed to be there straight when it happened, and people were not the WHO, not any independent scientist or anything, were allowed anywhere near the places where that would be interesting, where you would want to investigate, you
But you
would
would
want
have
to
had to have
investigate.
had world-class forensic scientists.
Turns out there was one.
Basically, what? Let me get that the butthole you're talking about.
No, 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 no. Let me continue on the trajectory. I'm coming to that guy, and no, I will not go back to Peter Daszak again. So why this guy is not behind bars or what you termed unalived, I really don't know, because he helped
Black
push a
site. We'll
narrative
split the difference.
that
CIA black
he
site.
knew was false, or he should have known. So there is no, and I want to say that before I go further with that, we will never know kind of narrative. Turns out people that very early on said, well, let's look at the lab, were right. These people have been ridiculed, cancelled, had their careers destroyed. There is not so much as an apology. Yeah. Reputable news outlets, newspapers, TV channels have labeled people in ways that they have never done this before. Turns out these people were right, and there's not as much as an apology. There should be hundreds, if not thousands, of people behind bars for this. That's my personal opinion about it. But now, we won't find out, because the Chinese have scrubbed everything clean repeatedly. And come to think, if they have done that, they have shown us they have done that, they have admitted they have done it. Now they are saying, oh, we found new evidence that it is from the lab, from the market. After they said a million times, no, it's not from market, it's not from China, blah blah blah. So first of all, this contradiction, and then
Well,
how
I
do you
agree. It
find
wasn't from the
anything
market.
after you have scrubbed the market clean several times? How do you find anything? Either you did a shit job with doing that, or you are lying again. So it's one of these two.
Or both.
Look, potentially
You can
both.
be incompetent and untruthful simultaneously.
Absolutely. Looking at what you
I'm
said,
just saying,
we need
let's give
forensics
these
to do
people
that.
credit. They could be stupid and full of shit.
Well, let's go via the forensics route. Turns
Yeah.
out one of these people that were attacked during that thing is a professor of forensics, and he very early on said, mid to late 2020, and I think he published it early 2021. He said, we will never learn the truth. We will never learn anything valuable by actually going in there with virologists and whoever. We need to look at, well, if the story that the Chinese Communist Party is pushing is true, we should see this evidence, that should be happening, but none of this is happening. If, on the other hand, they are lying and this and this and this happened, and they were to cover it up, this is what they would do. And here it is. Here's the timeline, what they did. So that was, in very short, the approach he used to prove with forensics it comes from the lab.
Yeah.
So now, literally, and another interesting thing, since you were mentioning Trump earlier on, Trump was also in a committee, and he basically said, well, from the intelligence services, he knows it is from the lab, but he can't say more. And we cannot assume it was deliberate because that is an act of war. But again, he can't say more because that is national security.
Well, and
So,
it also involves the previous administration because President Obama had been given a tour of that laboratory.
and we funded that lab.
Supposedly,
Yep.
there was quite a bit of money that exchanged hands.
Yep.
So
So,
we might
and
have funded the research to kill ourselves from our
yep.
near peer rival, which China's not a near peer. They're just not.
No, and
On
to
behalf of
move forward,
America, we will fuck you up. Just we're really good at. We will fuck you up.
um, what I was going on about is Italy is quitting the new Silk Road.
We're at an hour and
So
10. You want to make it its
what
own?
I would say yes. Let's split that off and do another thing talking about how. So, I mean, continuing with COVID, how COVID was basically the watershed moment for the world and China for what is coming next, what we've been talking about, economy and so on. And again, I will say, I rather have a decoupling right now than to continue this charade of an engagement that is not working for either side and have the same fucking problem a couple of years down the line, whether it is Russia and energy or China and manufacturing. So
Rip the
do this
band-aid.
now. Yeah,
Rip the
rip the
band-aid.
band-aid. Yeah,
Well, sounds like we'll
over
be
that.
coming to you right back in a minute. He's
Yeah,
rolling. I'm
and that's
Rich.
Rish. And we will see you soon.